Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm Tim Simmons, and I'm looking forward to an especially exciting year of podcasts. There's lots of great stuff in the works for 2012, so stay tuned. Now, the new year is a really important time for most people. For one thing, we use it as a time for setting goals. And if you want some help doing that, be sure to check out the Skills 360 podcast on achieving your goals. The new year is also a time when we feel refreshed and optimistic about the future. It's a brand new start, right? Well, unfortunately, that feeling is not shared by everyone. You might go to the office in the new year with a smile on your face, but there are people who seem determined to wipe it off. I'm talking about problem people. Every office has them. They might be uncooperative, rude, confrontational, overly competitive, or just plain unpleasant. Whatever the case, they're a pain in the butt to deal with. These problem people test our patience and push our buttons, but they don't have to. You just need to stick to a few basic principles, and you'll have better success in dealing with these situations. Today, I want to talk about how to deal with specific incidents with these difficult people. Maybe you're in a meeting and someone is screaming and shouting at everyone and everything. Or maybe a grouchy colleague walks up to your desk and wants to start an argument. Or maybe someone on your project team is in a really bad mood. These are the kinds of incidents I'm talking about. So how do we deal with them? Firstly, try not to judge the person. Don't assume you know what's going on. The source of the person's behavior might be completely unrelated to you or work. It might simply be coming out in your presence. The other thing you need to realize is that difficult people are often difficult because of insecurity or fear. For both of these reasons, reacting in ways that increase anxiety are going to be counterproductive. Instead, you need to find ways to decrease anxiety. This means, first and foremost, remaining cool, calm, and collected. Stay rational rather than becoming emotional. Even if the person seems to be baiting you, try not to get involved in an argument. Take the high road, and even if the person is getting personal, don't stoop to their level. In many cases, remaining calm and refusing to involve yourself in an argument can diffuse the situation relatively quickly. So if someone says to you, "Hey Jack, your idea stinks. That would never work in a million years," resist the temptation to strike back with, "Yeah, well, your idea isn't so hot either." If the person persists, one technique you can use is to repeat back what he or she is saying. Like this: "So, you think my idea stinks and it would never work." Or you can rephrase it like this: "So, you think my idea is terrible and I don't know what I'm talking about?" Just be careful not to infer too much. You might cause a bigger argument if you overinterpret what someone says. But if you repeat back the basic idea or words, sometimes people will realize what they've just said and how it must sound. Now, sometimes people cause problems because they don't feel understood. A solution for that is very simple. Listen. Hear what the person has to say, invite him to explain more, and ask questions about his opinion. Just remember to focus on the ideas, not the personal attacks or issues. If you give a difficult person the floor, rather than taking it away from him, you will sometimes see him turn a corner and become more positive. And let's not forget some direct techniques. In some circumstances, you can simply tell someone directly that his behavior is disruptive or disrespectful and ask him very kindly to change. Remember to focus on behavior, not character. It's okay to say, "Brad, everyone would feel more comfortable if you would lower your voice and focus on the task at hand." That's much better than saying, "Brad, you're a terrible grouch, and we can't stand being around you," even if that's what you really want to say. Great. So, remember to keep your cool, to listen and understand as well as possible, and to show or tell someone the effects of their behavior. If you follow these principles, you'll have much better success with those difficult people. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. Next week, we'll look at ongoing long-term problems with difficult people. You may not be able to change them as people, but you may be able to change the way they act. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Thanks for tuning in to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons. Before we jump into today's lesson on dealing with problem people, I just want to mention the coming release of our Course Builder web app. With Course Builder, members can create courses by searching and saving lists of BEP lessons. Take a look at the demo video on businessenglishpod.com to see just how quick and easy it is to make a personalized course. So, we've been looking at how to deal with problem people. These are the people in your office that drive you nuts because they're so difficult to get along with. Last week, we talked about how to deal with specific incidents with difficult individuals. Today, we're talking about ongoing issues. This is about the constant thorn in your side, whether it's your colleague, your boss, or the angry IT guy that gets annoyed every time you ask for some simple information. In extreme cases, these people can make you dread going to work each day. So how can we deal with them? First of all, if there's someone causing problems on a continual basis, it's best to act instead of just reacting. Don't let the issue and your resentment fester. The problem won't go away all by itself, and if you wait to deal with it, there's a good chance that when you do, you'll lose emotional control. So be proactive. You know there's a problem. Now go out and do something about it. And doing something about it means talking to the person causing the problem. But before I get into that, there are a couple of other tips I want to share with you. The first is to document everything. Keep a log or journal of the problem. Save relevant emails. Record dates, interactions, and details. This will give you clear points to take up with the person directly, and also if you have to discuss the problem with a supervisor. My second tip is to let someone know that you're experiencing a problem with someone. The person you tell could be a colleague, or it could be your boss. Don't whine and complain, and don't ask for help. Just let the person know there's an issue, and you're doing what you can to deal with it. Okay, next comes the hard part. What you need to do is confront the person who's causing the problem. This is easier said than done, and you need to keep several things in mind when you do this to avoid making the problem worse or getting pulled into a pointless argument. Make sure you ask the person to talk in private. You can start with some very open-ended questions to try to get the person to open up about any issues they're having. For example, you could say, "So, I've noticed that you seem stressed. Is everything okay?" What you may learn is that the person has a problem that is not related at all to work or to you. You can then kindly inform the person that the problem is affecting work and the people around him or her. The problem may also be related to work. You may find, for example, that the person feels his or her opinion or work is not valued. You can then attempt to address those problems. A little compassion can go a long way toward making a difficult person feel less threatened or insecure. But sometimes you can't find a problem at the bottom of the behavior. Sometimes that person simply has a bad attitude. In this case, you need to deal with the behaviors themselves. What should you talk about? Talk about exactly what has crossed the line. Talk about specific behavior, not general character. That is, you can say things like, "People feel rather frustrated when you interrupt them in mid-sentence." But avoid things like, "You're so impatient and it bugs the hell out of everyone." And focus on professional standards of behavior, not necessarily personal manners. We're all different. One way to prevent confrontation in a situation like this is to avoid sentences that begin with the word you. Think about a statement like this: "You never accept anyone's ideas." As soon as the person hears you, they will start to feel defensive. Instead, focus on the behavior or the people affected. You could say, "In brainstorming sessions, we really need to listen to all the ideas before criticizing anything. Did you notice anything else in our bad example? Listen again. You never accept anyone's ideas." That word never is definitely one to avoid. In fact, avoid all kinds of extreme words and exaggeration, words like always, or completely, or worst. These words will become points of argumentation themselves. Remember, you can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. And control is very important. Throughout your discussion, keep your head. You might feel quite emotional, but you shouldn't let the situation become emotional. Once you've talked with the person about the problems and their behavior, then it's up to them to make a change. If the person can't, you may have to have another discussion. And if all else fails, you may have to escalate the situation and involve a supervisor or mediator. But that should only happen after you've done your best to deal with the situation and the person yourself. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to take a look at how to defend yourself and your ideas in a competitive world. Some people might think that good ideas will win the day simply because they're good ideas. But it's not that simple. If you've got good ideas, you're going to have to convince people of their value. And you'll definitely have to defend them against all the people out to criticize or compete with you. It's a dog-eat-dog world, as they say, and you want to make sure you're not the dinner. So, what do you do when you're in a meeting? You've just laid out your plans for a new marketing strategy, and the guy across the table jumps up and yells that what you've suggested is impossible. Well, it starts with attitude. And having the right attitude means being calm, diplomatic, and logical. What you don't want to do is get dragged into an argument that's personal, petty, or unproductive. One way to do that is to reference your organization's broad mission and goals. Show how your ideas fit with the larger strategy. Say something like, "Well, as an organization, we decided to expand our target market, right? I believe my strategy helps us do that." Referencing broader organizational goals helps to elevate the debate. And elevating the debate means ensuring that the discussion is about ideas, not people. So instead of, "Dave, you always do this, and it drives me nuts," it should be, "I can't agree with this approach." Or instead of, "Come on, Dave, you're always fixated on cost," you can try, "I don't think cost should be our primary concern." And if you are able to elevate the debate, then what you'll get in return is not, "John, you must be crazy to think that will work." Instead, you should get something like this, "John, I think your plan has some problems." And that makes for a better discussion. So, if the debate is about ideas, how can you get people on board with yours in the face of criticism? One great way is to use questions. One kind of question is a leading question, one that has an obvious answer. For example, you could say, "Does everybody here agree that we need a really professional and slick ad campaign?" What you're doing with this kind of question is getting people to nod, to agree. And that's an attitude they'll carry over to other things you say. You can also use negative rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is one that doesn't really need an answer. For example, someone might ask, "Don't you think we need to increase our market share?" Or maybe, "Isn't a website an important part of any business marketing strategy?" Who could answer no to those questions? Now, sometimes people are actually right. You might not like the way they're criticizing your ideas, but they're right. So, what's the logical approach to take? Well, admit it. You might say, "You know, you've got a point there." Or, "Yes, well, the plan does appear to have some problems." You don't have to defend your ideas just because they're yours. Remember, we talked about being logical and elevating the debate. That means you need to give a little, too. But you don't have to give everything, and you can still concede a point while continuing to defend your idea. I'm talking about the old yes, but construction. As in, yes, the timeline might be too aggressive, but that's not a reason to ditch the plan. Or like this, "You're right about the colors, but the layout is more important." By admitting that your opponents are right about something, you're showing that you think clearly, that you're logical, and that you don't stubbornly hold on to your ideas just because they're yours. And that will bring more people onto your side, and the ideas that you do continue to defend will be stronger. We've talked about staying calm, using logic, and elevating the debate. But this isn't always easy. People get emotional. They get personal. They get defensive. And sometimes we need to manage other people's emotions carefully when defending our own ideas. That's what we'll talk about next time. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360. the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to continue our look at how to defend yourself and your ideas in a competitive world. One of the tough things in business, and life for that matter, is that you're not just dealing with ideas and numbers and rational decisions. You're dealing with people. And people don't always take a cool and logical approach to things, even if you do. They get emotional about ideas and worked up about disagreement. And you might get that way too. Passion is a good thing, but too much negative emotion is counterproductive. So, how can we manage people's emotions while continuing to defend ourselves? Well, one thing I'd like to emphasize is the importance of patience. Listen carefully before reacting and think before speaking. If we think someone is attacking us or our ideas, it's easy to start firing back. But the war of words is usually won by the person with the more strategic approach. Don't get into mudslinging. Just be patient and keep your cool. The opposite of this is getting defensive, which means being emotional and reactive. So when a difficult colleague says, "Sam, I'm afraid your plan will never work," don't respond with something like, "What are you trying to say? I spent a lot of time on this, and you just shoot it down." Instead, show patience and listen, which means you could respond with, "Okay, Dave, can you explain exactly why the plan won't work?" You see, like I said in our last lesson, we need to keep it focused on ideas. And we want to keep it positive. Believe it or not, that can mean actually praising the people who seem to be attacking us. Like, "Thanks, Dave, you've got some good points there." And it can mean actually thanking them for their comments, like, "Dave, I appreciate your feedback." Even when that feedback came in a way that you don't like, praising and thanking is part of taking the high road in debate. And in many cases, you get back what you give out. So you may find that aggressive colleague actually toning it down a bit. Of course, there are times when you have to say something negative, when someone continues with an aggressive approach. And at times like these, sometimes you have to address the issue directly, or call someone on their behavior. The important thing there is to make sure you focus on behavior, not character. What's the difference? Focusing on behavior means saying, "Karen, could you please lower your voice and just stay calm about this?" But focusing on character means saying, "Karen, you are too loud and emotional." Which do you think is going to serve you better in an argument? So, we exercise patience and we stay positive. That's great. And the third big thing we need to do is watch our language. You've surely been in an argument that starts out about ideas, but pretty quickly becomes about the words people choose or the way they phrase things. And I'd bet that a lot of those arguments have been about two big words to avoid: always and never. You can just strike those words from your professional vocabulary right now. They will only lead to trouble. Watching your language can also mean making your statement softer and gentler. We sometimes say that we qualify our statements, and there are many ways to do this. One way is by using words that show uncertainty, like maybe and might. Another way is to find indirect ways to make a point. For example, saying something like, "Gordon, what you say makes no sense." might get you into trouble. But if you say, Gordon, we might want to re-examine whether that's the best option, you are playing it safe. Softening your language can also mean couching or surrounding your ideas with extra words. Take a statement like, "We are getting off track." Saying it just like that could come across as aggressive. But what if you said, "It seems like we're getting off track here on this issue"? Again, softening your language can help reduce the level of emotion in the room, and you'll be in a better position to explain clearly why you or your ideas are right. So, just to review here, we've focused on 3 key tactics for defending yourself and your position in the face of difficult emotional people. Number 1, stay patient. Number 2, stay positive. And number 3, watch your language. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the mybeonline.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon.